Welcome to this transformative journey where the first step toward wealth isn't finding a shortcut, discovering a new scheme, or following someone else's formula, but rather learning to rewire your mind to think like the person who attracts and generates money effortlessly. Because the truth is that wealth begins in the brain long before it appears in your bank account. Money is not just a physical resource. It is a reflection of the beliefs, habits, and thought patterns you have cultivated over years. And until you understand how your mind perceives abundance and scarcity, no strategy, system, or opportunity will ever be enough to create lasting financial freedom. Most people struggle with money not because they aren't capable, but because their subconscious programming keeps them trapped in limitation, fear, and hesitation. And if you want to change your financial life, the first investment you must make is in your mental framework. You must train your brain to recognize opportunity where others see risk, to focus on solutions instead of obstacles, to think expansively instead of being confined by past failures, and to believe that wealth is a natural byproduct of value, effort, and strategic action. This is not about luck, inheritance, or entitlement. It is about cultivating a mindset that positions you to create, seize, and multiply wealth consistently. And that mindset begins the moment you take full responsibility for the results in your life. To begin, you must first become aware of how your thoughts about money have been shaped. Most people grow up with limiting beliefs that money is scarce, that the rich are greedy, that wealth is reserved for others. And these subconscious ideas act like invisible chains, dictating how you make decisions, how you take risks, and how you perceive opportunities. The moment you acknowledge these beliefs is the moment you open the door to transformation, because awareness precedes change, and when you intentionally replace old, limiting narratives with empowering ones, your brain begins to operate in alignment with abundance. Train yourself to see money as energy that flows toward value creation, not as a reward for luck or exploitation. Because the most financially successful people understand that the ability to generate wealth is directly proportional to the value they can deliver to others. When you start thinking this way, every decision, every conversation, and every action you take becomes filtered through the lens of opportunity, growth, and financial potential. And suddenly your mind begins to attract ideas, partnerships, and ventures that were invisible before. This is the first principle of training your brain to make more money. Stop thinking like someone who waits for wealth and start thinking like someone who commands it through creativity, intelligence, and relentless action. Next, you must cultivate a relationship with learning and knowledge, because your brain only expands into wealth when you feed it information, strategies, and experiences that challenge your current limits. The more you expose yourself to financial literacy, investment strategies, business models, negotiation techniques, and wealth-building principles, the more your subconscious begins to recognize opportunity, spot patterns, and connect dots that most people completely miss. Train your mind to absorb knowledge not passively, but with the intention to act, because knowledge without application is wasted potential. The brain that is constantly learning about money begins to visualize success, anticipate risks, and engineer solutions before problems arise. And this is the mental edge that separates those who stumble from those who soar. Beyond learning, you must also condition your brain to embrace discomfort, because financial growth often requires taking calculated risks, making difficult decisions, and moving forward even when the path is uncertain. And the mind that can remain calm, focused, and decisive under pressure is the mind that creates wealth consistently. Train your brain to think long-term, to prioritize delayed gratification, and to see the small, disciplined actions today as the building blocks of enormous financial outcomes tomorrow. Because short-term thinking produces limited results, while strategic, persistent, and patient thinking compounds into exponential wealth. A critical part of training your brain to make more money is also eliminating mental blocks that arise from fear, doubt, and procrastination. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of risk, all of These emotions act like mental potholes, slowing down your progress and draining your energy, and you must teach your brain to navigate them, to move forward despite them, and to rewire fear into calculated caution instead of paralysis. When doubt arises, respond with clarity. When uncertainty appears, respond with action. And when procrastination tempts you, respond with structure, routines, and non-negotiable commitment to progress. The brain becomes financially powerful when it is trained to take action before conditions feel perfect, to execute ideas before full confidence exists, and to persist until results appear. Wealth favors the decisive, the persistent, and the consistent, not those who wait for motivation or external validation, and your mind must internalize this principle until it becomes instinctual. Visualization, mental rehearsal, and deliberate focus on your financial goals are tools that teach your brain to prioritize opportunity and align action with outcomes, creating neural pathways that reinforce success instead of scarcity. When your brain is conditioned this way, generating money becomes a natural extension of your thought processes, not a separate struggle outside of yourself. Finally, you must train your brain to create and maintain financial discipline, because without control over your habits, decisions, and spending, even the greatest opportunities cannot accumulate into wealth. Discipline begins with clarity, knowing what your goals are, knowing how much you want to earn, and knowing the daily actions that move you toward that goal. Then, it moves to execution, following through consistently, even when your emotions resist, even when temptations arise, and even when results seem slow. Train your brain to automate this discipline through routines, accountability systems, and reminders of your purpose, so that managing money, seeking opportunities, and creating value becomes habitual rather than optional. The brain that can combine clarity, action, and discipline becomes a money-making machine, because it sees opportunities others ignore. It acts decisively while others hesitate, and it converts challenges into revenue streams instead of obstacles. When you master these mental skills, you stop being a passive observer in your financial life and begin to actively shape, create, and multiply wealth. Your brain, once trained in this way, becomes the ultimate asset, more powerful than luck, more powerful than connections, and more powerful than fleeting motivation, because it operates with consistency, strategy, and focus, turning potential into profit and ambition into achievement. Now that you understand the importance of training your brain to recognize opportunity and value, the next crucial step is to reprogram your beliefs about money, because the truth is that your subconscious beliefs dictate 90% of the decisions you make, the opportunities you notice, and the financial results you achieve. And until you shift these core beliefs, no external strategy, course, or system will produce lasting wealth. Most people carry deep-seated ideas that money is hard to come by, that the rich are greedy or dishonest, or that they are somehow undeserving of abundance. And these ideas act like invisible chains that sabotage every effort, block opportunities, and convince your mind to settle for less than it is capable of achieving. Reprogramming these beliefs begins with awareness, noticing when your thoughts are limiting, catching yourself when fear or doubt takes the wheel, and questioning every story you tell yourself about money, wealth, and success. Once you identify these mental patterns, you can actively replace them with empowering narratives. Money is abundant. Wealth is created through value, and you are fully capable of earning more than you ever imagined. This mental shift is not optional. It is foundational, because your brain responds to what it believes first, and action comes second, which means the faster you align your subconscious mind with abundance, faster your external reality will follow. One of the most powerful techniques for reprogramming your beliefs is visualization, because your brain cannot fully distinguish between real experiences and vividly imagined experiences that are emotionally charged. And when you consistently visualize yourself achieving financial goals, handling wealth with confidence, and creating opportunities effortlessly, your mind begins to treat these scenarios as real possibilities. Train yourself to see the life you want in as much detail as possible. The income, the lifestyle, the freedom, the people you impact, and the confidence you carry, and do this every day, preferably at the same time so it becomes a ritual. Your brain will create neural pathways that prioritize actions leading to this reality, and over time, what once seemed impossible will start to feel inevitable. Affirmations, when used correctly, amplify this effect by replacing internal doubt with internal belief. And statements like, "I am capable of creating abundance," "I attract opportunities that grow my wealth," and "money flows to me effortlessly because I deliver massive value" are not fluff. They are signals that instruct your subconscious mind to shift from scarcity thinking to abundance thinking. The more consistently you reinforce these beliefs, the stronger they become until your natural thinking aligns with behaviors that generate wealth, and scarcity becomes something you observe in the world, not something you live under. Another critical element in reprogramming your money mindset is observing and learning from those who are already financially successful, because the brain learns by modeling patterns, behaviors, and thought processes. Study the habits, strategies, and mental frameworks of self-made millionaires, investors, and entrepreneurs. Notice how they approach risk, how they handle setbacks, how they prioritize learning, and how they consistently take action despite uncertainty. By modeling these behaviors, your brain begins to internalize not just what is possible, but how to act in ways that make wealth inevitable. This does not mean copying blindly, but rather extracting principles, aligning them with your goals, and consistently practicing them until they become automatic. The mind that absorbs the habits and thinking of successful people becomes wired for wealth because it understands that money is not random. It is predictable when approached strategically, and that predictability becomes the blueprint for your own financial dominance. It is also essential to examine the stories and environments that have shaped your financial beliefs, because many people unconsciously inherit scarcity from family, friends, or society, and these inherited ideas can create resistance to wealth. Perhaps you grew up hearing phrases like "money doesn't grow on trees," "rich people are selfish," or "we can't afford that," and these phrases program the brain to avoid risk, undervalue effort, and settle for limitations. To break free, you must challenge these inherited narratives, actively replace them with empowering ones, and surround yourself with influences that reinforce possibility, abundance, and action. This may require changing your social environment, seeking mentors who embody the mindset you desire, and consuming media that expands your financial thinking rather than contracts it. Your brain is highly adaptive. It mirrors what you focus on, and by feeding it stories of abundance, success, and strategic wealth creation, you condition it to spot opportunity, take action, and persist until results are achieved. Finally, you must pair belief with action, because mindset alone cannot generate money. It is the combination of belief, decision-making, and relentless execution that produces results. Once your brain is rewired to think abundantly, it will start noticing opportunities you previously ignored. It will instinctively assess risk versus reward, and it will prioritize actions that align with growth. Train yourself to take immediate, consistent steps toward financial goals, no matter how small at first, because every action reinforces your new belief system and proves to your brain that wealth is attainable. Remember, wealth is a reflection of your internal programming made visible in the external world, and by aligning thoughts, beliefs, and actions, you create a self-reinforcing cycle of growth, confidence, and financial momentum. The person you are becoming, now focused, disciplined, and mentally aligned with abundance, is the person who will attract, create, and multiply wealth far beyond what you once imagined possible. Now that your brain is beginning to think like someone who attracts money, the next essential step is learning to overcome the mental blocks and fears that sabotage financial growth. Because even with the best strategies, the clearest goals, and the strongest habits, your mind can still create invisible barriers that prevent you from taking the actions necessary to generate wealth. These mental blocks often show up as self-doubt, fear of failure, fear of judgment, or a belief that you are not capable or deserving of abundance. And if left unchecked, they will quietly sabotage every decision, every opportunity, and every investment you attempt. To truly train your brain to make more money, you must confront these fears head-on. Examine the stories you have been telling yourself about risk, success, and worth, and rewire your thinking to replace hesitation with confidence, scarcity with abundance, and fear with calculated action. The mind that fears loss more than it desires gain is a mind that will always stay small, and wealth cannot exist in a consciousness ruled by fear, which is why transforming your mental programming is just as important as mastering financial strategies or acquiring knowledge. Fear around money often manifests because the brain is wired to protect against loss, but wealth creation inherently involves risk, discomfort, and uncertainty, and if you allow fear to dictate your actions, you will never move past the familiar, the safe, and the mediocre. To reprogram your brain, you must shift your perception of risk, seeing it not as danger, but as a calculated opportunity to grow, earn, and expand your potential. Break down fear into its components. Is it fear of judgment? Fear of losing capital? Fear of failure? Once you identify the source, you can begin designing strategies to mitigate risk while still taking decisive action, because confidence is built not by avoiding fear, but by acting despite it. You must teach your mind that mistakes are not catastrophes. They are lessons, feedback that brings you closer to mastery, and every failure avoided is a lesson missed. The sooner you accept that risk is a necessary companion to wealth, the faster your brain will begin operating in alignment with abundance, and the more naturally you will take actions that multiply your earning potential. Limiting beliefs are another form of mental block that silently constrains your financial potential. These beliefs are often inherited from upbringing, society, or past experiences, and they appear as thoughts like, "I'll never be rich," "People like me don't make money," or "I'm not smart enough to succeed financially." Each time you repeat these thoughts, your brain interprets them as reality, reinforcing patterns of inaction, avoidance, and self-sabotage. Reprogramming your brain requires replacing these beliefs with empowering ones that encourage action, risk-taking, and vision-driven growth, because your subconscious mind will act in alignment with whatever you consistently feed it. Use affirmations, visualization, and consistent exposure to positive financial examples to override these limiting narratives. Every new idea you internalize about abundance reshapes your neural pathways, and over time, your mind stops defaulting to scarcity and begins instinctively seeking opportunities, generating solutions, and taking actions that produce wealth. The process may feel unnatural at first, because your brain has been conditioned to avoid risk and limit growth. But persistence in rewiring these thought patterns is the key to unlocking your financial potential. Emotional control is another critical factor in training your brain to make more money, because emotions are often the silent drivers behind financial decisions, and unchecked emotions like greed, envy, or impatience can sabotage even the most well-thought-out strategies. Your brain must learn to make decisions based on logic, analysis, and long-term vision, rather than reacting impulsively to temporary feelings or external pressures. Train yourself to pause, evaluate, and act deliberately, because the mind that masters emotions controls money, whereas the mind ruled by emotions is ruled by circumstance. Habits like journaling, meditation, and structured planning can strengthen mental resilience, allowing you to detach from temporary impulses and focus on long-term growth. By teaching your brain to balance emotion with strategy, you ensure that every step toward wealth is intentional, precise, and effective, rather than reactive or reckless. Finally, cultivating a mindset of abundance rather than limitation is essential to removing financial fear and mental blocks. Scarcity thinking tells your brain that money is finite, competition is fierce, and opportunities are rare, which leads to stress, hesitation, and poor decision-making. Abundance thinking, on the other hand, trains your brain to recognize that value creation is unlimited, opportunities exist everywhere, and wealth can be multiplied through action, intelligence, and leverage. Every time you shift your focus from lack to potential, your brain begins scanning your environment for ways to generate revenue, attract opportunities, and create solutions that others cannot see. The brain wired for abundance not only identifies possibilities faster, but also motivates you to act consistently, persevere through obstacles, and maintain confidence even when results are not immediate. When your mind operates in this state, earning money becomes less about chasing currency and more about leveraging your skills, your creativity, and your influence to produce value that the market rewards. And the more you internalize this mindset, the more naturally your actions align with growth, profitability, and long-term wealth accumulation. Now that your brain is learning to overcome fear and scarcity, the next crucial step is to develop strategic thinking and habits that transform potential into tangible wealth. Because making money consistently is not about luck or random opportunities. It is about creating systems, patterns, and behaviors that put you in the right position to generate value, seize opportunities, and multiply your earnings over time. Most people fail financially not because they lack ideas or intelligence, but because they fail to implement structured thinking and disciplined habits that support growth. And without this foundation, even the best opportunities slip through their fingers. Strategic thinking requires seeing beyond immediate gratification and short-term results, understanding the mechanics of money, and anticipating outcomes before they occur. Your brain must be trained to analyze risks, identify patterns in financial markets or business environments, and make decisions that align with both your long-term vision and your current capabilities. This is not something that happens overnight. It is developed through deliberate practice, continuous learning, and consistent application of money principles that the wealthy use every day. Begin by creating routines that support financial growth, because consistent habits compound faster than sporadic bursts of effort. The most successful people do not wait for inspiration or motivation to take action. They act according to a system that ensures progress is inevitable. Set aside time every day to review your financial goals, track your income and expenses, explore new opportunities, and reflect on decisions that either enhanced or hindered your growth. Your brain responds to repetition, so by creating daily financial routines, you are training it to recognize opportunities, prioritize high-value actions, and take decisive steps that others often neglect. Beyond routine, strategic thinking also requires mental exercises that expand your problem-solving capabilities. Study case studies, analyze business failures and successes, simulate scenarios, and practice evaluating risks and rewards in advance. These exercises condition your brain to respond proactively rather than reactively, ensuring that when opportunities or challenges arise, your mind can make precise, profitable decisions without hesitation or panic. Another critical habit for your brain is goal setting with clarity and specificity, because a vague objective produces vague results. If your financial goals are unclear, your actions will be scattered, inconsistent, and ineffective, and your brain will struggle to align behaviors with outcomes. Instead, define exact income targets, desired wealth milestones, and timelines, and break these goals into actionable steps that can be executed daily, weekly, and monthly. Train your mind to focus on both micro actions and macro vision simultaneously. Every small decision should be a building block toward larger financial objectives, and your brain must constantly evaluate whether each choice moves you closer to the life you envision. Reinforce this habit through visualization, journaling, and accountability systems, because the brain performs best when it has a clear target, measurable progress, and feedback loops to learn from mistakes. Strategic goal setting is not just planning. It is training your brain to operate like a financial radar, constantly scanning for opportunities, assessing risks, and guiding action toward wealth accumulation. Equally important is developing financial intelligence, because your brain can only create what it understands. This includes learning how to manage money effectively, understanding investments, recognizing profitable business models, analyzing financial statements, and mastering negotiation and influence skills. When you consistently expose your mind to financial knowledge, it starts recognizing patterns, evaluating opportunities, and predicting outcomes that others miss. Your brain begins to operate like a money magnet. It identifies gaps in the market, finds ways to leverage resources, and generates creative solutions that produce value and revenue. Without this intelligence, even the most disciplined actions can be misdirected and wealth remains limited. Train your brain to not just earn money, but to make money work for you through investments, passive income streams, and asset creation. Because multiplying money requires thinking several steps ahead, anticipating consequences, and aligning action with strategy. Finally, cultivate the mental habit of persistence, because strategy without follow-through is wasted energy. Wealth accumulation is rarely linear. There will be setbacks, obstacles, and periods where progress seems invisible, and your brain must be trained to maintain focus, discipline, and action even when results are slow or unexpected challenges arise. Persistence becomes automatic when you reinforce your brain with routines, long-term vision, and the belief that effort consistently applied compounds into massive success. The person who consistently applies strategic thinking, disciplined habits, and financial intelligence becomes unstoppable because their brain naturally scans for opportunities, evaluates risk with precision, and executes with confidence, while the average person remains reactive, hesitant, and limited by fear and indecision. By training your brain in these ways, you are building a mindset that sees money as both a tool and a system. A mind that creates, attracts, and multiplies wealth through deliberate action and foresight, and a life that continuously grows in both abundance and possibility. Now that your brain is trained to recognize opportunities, overcome fear, and think strategically, the final step is to implement what you've learned. Scale your financial actions and master the mindset that turns consistent effort into unstoppable wealth. Because knowledge alone is worthless without execution, and the brain that can act decisively, repeatedly, and intelligently is the brain that creates real financial results. Implementation requires courage, clarity, and consistency, because every idea, plan, or strategy only becomes powerful when it is brought into reality with deliberate action. Start by taking the small, calculated steps toward earning more money. Whether it is starting a side business, investing in assets, negotiating for higher pay, or monetizing skills you already have. Each small step not only produces income, but it reinforces the mental wiring of confidence, decisiveness, and belief in your ability to create wealth. Your brain learns by experience, and every action that produces results, no matter how modest, strengthens the neural pathways that make future financial decisions easier, faster, and more precise. Scaling your financial efforts is equally important, because wealth compounds when your brain operates at multiple levels simultaneously. Don't settle for incremental gains that plateau. Look for opportunities to multiply results by leveraging skills, systems, and resources. This could mean automating income streams, creating multiple revenue channels, collaborating with others who share your vision, or reinvesting profits into high-growth opportunities. Train your brain to think expansively, not just linearly, because the mind that sees scale sees solutions that most people miss, opportunities and challenges, and ways to create exponential returns rather than incremental ones. Your mindset must evolve from working for money to having money work for you. And this shift only occurs when your brain understands the principles of leverage, compounding, and strategic allocation. Every decision should be filtered through the question, does this move me closer to large-scale wealth and financial independence? This approach teaches your brain to prioritize high-value actions over distractions, to focus on outcomes instead of activity, and to consistently seek efficiency, innovation, and growth. Mastery of your money mindset also requires resilience in the face of setbacks, because the path to wealth is never linear, and the brain must be trained to respond to obstacles with strategic thinking rather than fear or frustration. Mistakes, failures, and delays are inevitable, but they are not indicators of incompetence. They are signals for adjustment, learning, and adaptation. Teach your mind to view setbacks as temporary and informative, to extract lessons from every error, and to persist with creativity, focus, and patience. The more you experience, analyze, and adjust, the stronger your mental circuits become for spotting opportunities and avoiding pitfalls in the future. Over time, your brain develops the ability to anticipate challenges before they occur, evaluate solutions instantly, and execute with precision, turning obstacles into catalysts for wealth creation. This resilience is what separates people who accumulate modest results from those who achieve extraordinary financial freedom, because the mind trained to respond intelligently under pressure produces outcomes far beyond talent or luck alone. Another essential aspect of mastering your money mindset is embracing continuous growth. Your brain must never settle for the current level of income, influence, or success, because stagnation invites scarcity thinking and mediocrity. Seek out knowledge daily. Study successful entrepreneurs, investors, and thought leaders. Analyze financial trends and constantly refine strategies that produce results. By feeding your mind with ideas, insights, and inspiration, you keep it alert, adaptive, and oriented toward abundance. Train yourself to apply what you learn immediately, because knowledge becomes power only when executed. The brain conditioned in this way becomes a perpetual wealth generator. It notices opportunities that others overlook. It calculates risks with clarity. It acts decisively. And it continuously multiplies results without requiring external validation. Finally, integrate all these principles: belief, focus, discipline, strategic thinking, emotional control, resilience, and continuous learning into a consistent practice that becomes your identity, because the person you are becoming now will be the person who attracts, creates, and maintains wealth effortlessly. Every thought, every habit, every action must reinforce your financial vision until it becomes second nature for your brain to operate in abundance. Once your brain is fully aligned, money ceases to be a problem, opportunities appear where none existed, and financial decisions become automatic extensions of your disciplined, strategic, and growth-focused mindset. You are no longer reactive. You are proactive. You are no longer constrained by fear. You are empowered by knowledge. You are no longer chasing wealth. You are commanding it. And now, if this journey has inspired you, it's time to act. Subscribe to this channel to stay connected with a community of ambitious achievers. Like this video to honor your commitment to your financial growth. Comment below to share your goals and progress so others can be inspired. And share this message with someone who needs to rewire their money mindset today. Every step you take toward mastering your brain and building wealth matters, and every person you influence matters. Thank you for listening, for showing up, and for committing to the most powerful investment you will ever make, yourself. Now go, take action, multiply your income, and train your brain to make more money until financial freedom becomes your reality.